Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Oracle Chats with just me, Erin Lee. We realized sometime during the week that today was Mother's Day. And of course, Bobbi has her kids. Her whole crew is home this weekend. So she is home, hopefully being incredibly pampered and spoiled by her kids and her husband in a home full of love. So you guys are stuck with me today, but I'm hoping that we're going to have just as much fun as we do when Bobbi's here. I've got the little ticker along the screen at the bottom. We're not going to do readings today. We're just going to focus on general questions. I've got a couple of things that we can talk about, but I would love to hear what you guys are wondering about. I'm Erin Lee of heavenlymessenger.com. I am a psychic and angel card reader. I practice and teach Reiki and other energy healing modalities. I love working with crystals and lots of other things. So there should be lots that we can talk about. And intuition. I love sharing information about intuition, connecting with your intuition, tapping into your own psychic ability. So please feel free to comment, to say hello. And also, if you have any questions, general questions that you want to ask about, I would love to connect with you today and talk about it. If you do want a live reading, pop onto my show on Tuesday night. I do Connection with Intention at 7 p.m. Pacific, which is 10 p.m. Eastern. It's live on my Facebook page and YouTube, and I will send it over to the Universal Connections Facebook page too. So I'm kind of wondering, I haven't seen any comments come in yet, and usually by this time people are commenting, so I'm hoping that it's working. Oh, there we go. And then they just all started coming in at once. Awesome. So hello to Ange and Leslie. It's wonderful to see both of you. Thank you so much for joining me. And thank you everybody else for popping on as well. And Ruth too. It's wonderful to connect with you guys today. Thank you. So I just wanted to wish a really quick happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers in North America, and a happy Mother's Day to all of the stepmoms and adoptive moms and fur baby moms, and to the women who want to have kids but don't have kids. And there are so many women to celebrate, and other people who aren't mothers but who are taking on that caregiving role. Happy Mother's Day and happy Caregivers Day to you as well. Lovely. So let's take a look and see. Hello to Jerry and to Ange and to Kate. It's wonderful to see all of you. Thanks for joining us today. So I see Jerry's asking a question. Jerry's asking, on card readings, I shuffle the card before each pick. Do you? Do you use oracle cards? Yeah. Okay. So there are a couple things with that. I do use oracle cards. For me, I personally prefer them to tarot. Tarot are also a really beautiful divination tool to connect with, and there are amazing things that people who are well trained and well versed in tarot that they can do. One of the differences, the primary difference I think between tarot and oracle cards, tarot has has a lot of structure. So your traditional tarot deck will have 22 major arcana cards and 56 minor arcana cards. And just to throw this little tidbit of information out there, the playing cards that we use, ace through king, is actually based on the minor arcana. They have an additional what's called a suit. Is it a suit card? I believe so. No, court. Pardon me, a court card. So where we have Jack, Queen, and King in our playing deck, they also have a page card, which gives them 56 instead of the 52. With oracle cards, there can be any number of cards. I really like to use angel cards. That was what I learned with years and years ago, and they really work for me. I love connecting with the angels. And the majority of those card decks have 44 cards, but there's really no limit. You could have an oracle card deck that only has 20 cards, but you could also have one that has 100 cards or more. I mean, at that point, it starts to get a little bit tricky to shuffle. but that's all right. The question that Jerry asked was about shuffling. So first of all, often oracle cards are fairly large size. They're pretty big. And tarot cards this size can be kind of difficult to maneuver because there are so many more cards. For example, there are 44 cards with this deck. And then if you can add if you can imagine almost an additional like twice as many, it becomes a really big deck. When it comes to pulling cards, I definitely prefer to shuffle. So I like to shuffle on their end like this, because I find holding the deck like this is really uncomfortable. I can do it. I mean, some people have larger hands. Often I'll start doing my little blurb about it when I'm doing readings with men, and they just pick up the cards and they have no problem because their hands are just that much bigger than mine. But I like this. And I like to sit and think about the question that I'm asking. So one of the things that's really important is being fairly clear about the question that you're asking. Because if you aren't clear, then what you get can be really muddied. So sometimes while I'm shuffling, particularly if I'm doing for myself, my mind will start to wander a little bit because it doesn't feel like it's quite right to stop shuffling the cards. And I'll find partway through the shuffling that actually the question has morphed in my mind. And if I notice that, I take a moment to regroup and I ask myself, what is the question that I'm actually wanting to ask at this time? And then as I start shuffling again, I make sure that I focus. There are lots of different ways to choose your cards. I wonder if part of what Jerry is asking too is about shuffling the cards in between each card that you choose. So there are lots of ways that you can read cards. You can choose a single card. So once you finish shuffling and it feels like it's the time to stop, you can choose a card off the top of the deck. You can fan them out like this and choose one like this. Something that's really popular with tarot is to cut the deck and take that card, or potentially cut the deck several times and then take a card. Sometimes as you're shuffling, you'll have what I call jumpers. And as long as it's not more than 5 cards, we hold on to the jumpers. Anything more than 5 cards is user error. So, it is entirely possible to have like a 52 card pickup as you're shuffling cards. But yeah, so if it's less than 5, then those are intended to fall out. But if it's more than that, then, we're probably getting into the mechanics of the shuffling of large cards. So some people I know will shuffle the cards until they get the jumpers, and they will put them in whatever place if they have a particular spread that they're using, or so there are lots of different things that you can do about that. I love that question so much, Jerry. Thank you for asking. And I'm so excited for today's chat too. I'm missing Bobbi. It's so much fun connecting with Bobbi, but I'm grateful that you guys are here with me today. And hello to Kate and to Kimberly and to JC and to Bobbi, a different Bobbi, and Elizabeth. Hello, thanks for joining us. Elizabeth says, I just got the Breathe Easy cards. Cool. That sounds like an incredible deck. I'm not familiar with that one. If you want to write a little bit about them in the comments there, I would love to hear about them. I have about 60 or 70 card decks of my own, and I just love finding new decks. They're a lot of fun. The readings I do are primarily psychic, but it's still nice to incorporate and to pull cards into it too. And Jerry says, I have a deck called A Traveler's Guide to the Well-Worn Path. Ooh, that does sound like a really interesting one. Jerry, if you happen to know, would you pop down in the comments who created that deck? I'm not familiar with it, but it sounds really similar to a Denise Lynn deck that's also really cool. Fabulous. And hello to Maureen and LOLs from Ruth. And Carrie says, I get lots of jumpers 80% of the time. Yeah. Some people, they just kind of pop out. And I don't know that there's any rhyme or reason to like why they pop out more for some people than others. But it's a pretty strong message when cards are popping out. Sometimes what I'll do is if I have somebody else shuffling the deck and they get a couple of jumpers, I'll put those off to the side as the messages that Spirit really wants us to know. And then we'll pull out cards for this spread that we do. I like to pull 6 cards, not for any real specific reason. I tend to find a lot of patterns in the messages that come up, and it's kind of a fun way to read. I enjoy it. So yeah. And Jerry says, when I read and my hands are bad, I fan them and hold my hand and move above and take what gives indication. Yeah, that's a wonderful way to do it. I taught an angel card reading, or I should say oracle card reading course using your intuition last summer. And one of the students is like a really favorite person of mine. And she had this amazing ability to just like fan the cards out with just like her hand. She put it down on the desk and it's shoom, just like this. It was absolutely incredible. I haven't seen anything like it, but man, was that cool. Chantel, it's always so good to see you. Thanks for joining us. And Heather, hello. It's been ages since I've connected with you. Let me see. Hello to Linda. No, I'm not from Lake Cowichan. I am on Vancouver Island, but I'm up in Union Bay, which is just south of Courtney. It's all part of the Comox Valley. And literally, I'm about 6 kilometers away from the Buckley Bay Ferry Terminal that takes people over to Denman and Hornby. And Jerry says those jump cards are pushy. Yeah, they will keep jumping each time until you listen. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Actually, that's a really awesome point that you've made, Jerry. What happens if you are pulling cards and you get the same cards over and over and over again? Often it's because you aren't completely listening to the message. And so take a deeper look. It could be that you are seeing something on the surface, or the message that you're taking from it is more what you want to hear as opposed to what they're trying to get across to you. That can be a bit of a challenge too. So if you keep getting the same card over and over and over again, ask yourself, what do I know? What do I need to know that's deeper within this message? The other reason that they can come up over and over and over again is actually to confirm. So it can be a confirmation. For example, the healthy lifestyle card is popping into my head. This is one from the yellow Archangel Oracle card deck that I use on my Tuesday night shows. And it's Archangel Raphael's card. And Archangel Raphael is the angel who helps and supports us with healing, particularly on a physical level. He is the archangel who works with like doctors and people who practice medicine of all sorts. And he really helps and supports us in that way. And so sometimes his card will come out as a confirmation of things that you've already been thinking about doing. So you're already starting to go down that path. You're like, oh, I think that it'd be really helpful for me to make this change in my life, that it would be healthy and positive for me. And so this card will come out as a confirmation, like, yes, you're on the right track. Keep going. If you've already been on that path for a while, where you've already made some changes and you don't really see anything else that you're feeling drawn to do, I mean, sometimes we're being encouraged to do things beyond what we're doing, but more often than not, it's a really strong confirmation that, yep, you're on the right track, and I'm helping and supporting you in staying on that track. So lots of different reasons that cards can continue to come up. So oh, and Chantel is saying, I see what card to draw. That's really cool. When we talk about feeling cards, that's a very clairsentient way to choose cards. But I think part of what Chantel is describing is possibly it being like it's standing out or being illuminated in some way, that's the card to choose. And that's a very clairvoyant thing. That's really interesting. I don't think I've heard of that before, but I love it. And Carrie says, oh, that makes sense. I'm a bit stubborn. Yeah. We can all be a little bit stubborn, and we can also be resistant to hearing the messages that are coming up in the cards. I mean, has anybody had that experience? experience? Put up your hand. I'll put up my hand too, because I know that that's something that I've definitely dealt with in the past as well. um, where I am very stubborn and determined that this is going to be the answer, that this is going to be the message for myself. It's really easy to be impartial for other people, but when it's for yourself and when it's for something that you're really invested in, it can be really difficult to remove yourself enough from the situation to be able to get a really clear message. So that can be another thing. Like sometimes when you pull cards, the message is really murky and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. Because one thing is saying to keep going, the other thing is saying to slow down or to stop. And then I'm being pulled over in this direction. I'm looking at these cards and they just aren't making sense to me. Sometimes that can happen because when you aren't clear enough in the question that you're asking. So going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, maybe the question became murky for you as you were shuffling. And so you've got little bits and pieces of the question being answered, or universe is kind of like, we don't know what it is that you're talking about. So let's go back to the drawing board. But also, if you are overly invested in a situation, that's not the best time to be pulling cards. Like for me, one of the most difficult areas in life to draw cards about is around love life and romance, because it's something that's really important to me. And that tends to be true for a lot of people as well. So that's probably one of the big areas that it can be very difficult and challenging to get an answer, because I'm seeing as we're talking about this. Does anybody remember as a kid he loves me not, he loves me not? I don't even remember what kind of flower it was. It might be a dandelion, but let me know if you know what I'm talking about. That's almost what it's like. And sometimes, if there are only a couple left, you can say, well, there are only 3. So that means that if I say he loves me right now, then it'll be he loves me not, and then it'll be he loves me. I don't believe I've just admitted to doing that. Oh dear. Let me see. I've missed a couple of them. The messages are coming in quickly. So let me see. Okay, so Angie's saying, I was given a tarot card kit and booklet 15 years ago. It's by Sasha Fenton. Cool. Have you had the opportunity to get into them and to really enjoy them, Ange? One of the things that I know has been part of tarot culture for quite a long time is that you can't buy a deck. A deck needs to be given to you. Again, like I'm not a tarot card reader, and I certainly don't have any of the traditions that they follow. But what I've kind of heard from a lot of readers is that that's a little bit antiquated, and that you can purchase your own tarot deck. And certainly there aren't any issues with purchasing your own oracle card deck either. But man, it's really exciting when somebody chooses to give something to you, either because they know you well enough that they're like, oh, I think you'll really enjoy this. And that's a really special thing to have. So Elizabeth is saying, thank you for commenting on this. The Breathe Easy deck is 36 energy exercise for mind, body, and spirit. Oh, cool. By Amy Zerner and Monte Farber. It's been amazing. I end my night with positive affirmation and I tend to get 2 cards. Cool. Oh, that sounds like a really interesting deck. And that's one of the things that I think is special. It's really neat and unique, is that we're seeing card decks that aren't necessarily focused towards using them as an oracle or as like some sort of divination tool, but that they're helping and supporting us in other ways, that they're teaching us things, or they're helping to guide some self-care practices. And that to me is incredibly exciting. What an amazing way to have something that you're able to cater to yourself, that you're intuitively pulling. So like your subconscious is fully and completely aware of what it is that you need to focus on. And here are all of these options, in this case, 36. And what are you going to focus on? Isn't that amazing? That's awesome. Hi, Franklin. Thanks for joining us. Okay, and so Jerry's saying the deck Raven Grimacy and Stephanie Taylor, art by Mickey Mueller. Cool. That sounds like a really interesting deck, Jerry. I so love it when people share what they're focusing on. And Chantel says that that's exactly what happens for her. So her clairvoyance is coming up, and it's showing her the card to pull. There are lots of really interesting ways to pull in your intuitive abilities into reading cards. And I think that's actually one of the great benefits to working with oracle cards as well, is you have the opportunity to really start learning and understanding how you receive your intuitive messages, whether it's clairvoyant, which means clear seeing, and certainly as a visual tool, like oracle cards are such a great thing to start practicing and developing clairvoyance with. Clairsentience, like how does it make you feel? How do you feel in your body? For me, I'm one of my primary clairs is claircognizance, and so I'll just grab this deck that I have here that we pulled. And so for me, it's always really important to have words on my card deck. Sometimes, if the cards are really good at expressing ideas and thoughts in the graphic, then that's enough. But it can be a really interesting experience to go through and say, hey, I really want to develop more of my clairvoyance, and so I'm going to focus on a card deck that is very heavily imaged, or that has images that I really resonate with. Anyway, so Ruth says that she's not good with the cards. You know what? I would love to hear a little bit more about that in the comments if you're open, Ruth, because for me, and this maybe goes to like my background and what I enjoy. I love cards. I think they're a lot of fun, and if there is something that we can help you with, I think that would be really incredible. Awesome. Yeah, and Chantel says that she fans them out in her hand and see which card to get out. So yeah, that's incredible. Maureen says, I struggle to read myself even with tarot. How do you feel about dreams in terms of messaging? Is it still too murky? Um, yeah, so let me just go back for a second. I mean, I've already said that there are some areas in my life that I have a difficult time reading myself for too. And a lot of that has to do with being too invested in the outcome, or too invested in the message that comes up. So, one of the things that you could do is you could practice by reading things about yourself that you don't have a really vested interest in. So, for example, when we do intuitive exercises like trying on a decision where you feel in your body yes and no, one of the things that we focus on is something that doesn't have a really big impact, and to start asking, or to start with that question rather. So what should I eat today? What should I wear today? So you could start with doing things like that. And I mean, probably for the most part, you aren't too overly concerned about what you're wearing for the day. You probably have clothes in your closet, and or you could even narrow it down. Maybe you have 5 different or 3 different potential outfits, and you have a card for each of them, and maybe or maybe they're each different colors, and so the card that you pick, it has to have a lot of that color in it, and that helps you to know which card you're going to do for the day, but pardon me, which outfit you're going to wear for the day. And part of what that does is that starts to develop your pathway to connecting to messages for yourself. When you can create space for yourself where you aren't overly invested in the messages that are coming up, then it makes it a lot easier to read yourself doing that. In terms of dreams, in terms of and messaging, is it still too murky? I don't think so. I think that more that has to do with your own understanding of what's coming up and what's coming through. When you are reading for yourself, it's really important to be in a place where the answer could be anything. Because as soon as you start putting limitations on it because of what you want or because of what you think, then you're pulling yourself out of the intuitive process, because both of those things are really ego based. Well, ego doesn't have intuition. intuition. Ego uses your mind and your thought, and it also is that place that kind of tells you no. Your subconscious is really where you are connecting. Like, that's the connection point for your intuition, for psychic ability. So as soon as you start putting in want or think, then suddenly uh, that connection is turned off. When I have people book readings with me, I give them the option to put in what they want to talk about, and I don't look at that until right before I'm doing their reading. What I'll do is I'll take 15 minutes before the start time of our reading. And before I even look at the question, I'll take their name and I'll start tapping into the person to see what messages are coming up for them. And then I'll take a look at the questions that they've asked and I'll start asking about those questions too. But the reason that I do that is I don't want to give my ego mind any sort of time or any sort of room beforehand to start plugging in what it thinks the answer is. I want to be completely fresh and completely neutral and already connected with the energy of that person before I even take a look at the questions that they're asking. So it can be really helpful and beneficial if you're receiving a reading from somebody to interact with them, like to talk. I certainly really enjoy that. And I think that we can get a lot of clarity in the messages that are coming up. But there also comes a point with giving too much information, because if you start giving too much information, then suddenly your reader is going to be going into their thinking place instead of their intuitive and their psychic place. So we kind of got off tangent on that. In terms of dreams being too murky, I don't think so. I mean, certainly for some people, for some things, but if it's something that you start paying attention to and you start coming into an understanding with it, then I think that it is really, it's a wonderful way for spirit to connect with you. I mean, one of the reasons that spirit and intuition really comes to the forefront while we're dreaming is it's one of the only times in the day, unless you're consciously taking time out of your day, to connect with your subconscious. Your ego is asleep and your subconscious has full reign of what's happening. So your dreams are actually can be a really amazing place to receive intuitive messages and psychic messages, and also to connect with deceased loved ones on the other side. The flip side of that is it can also be a time when we are processing. So, for example, if we're going through a lot of really deep healing at the time, or we are refusing to do healing that we need to do, then our dreams can be part of playing out like the things that we are refusing to acknowledge while we are awake. So, I mean, it can certainly be beneficial in terms of pointing you into what you need to be focusing on, because if it's coming up in your dream time, there's something more that's there. If you are able to remember your dreams, because a lot of people don't or can't, it can be really helpful to have a dream journal. And what you basically do is you write down the parts of the dream that you remember, preferably as soon as you wake up, because sometimes as soon as we start going through our day, then we forget. But also sometimes as we're going through our day, little bits and pieces will pop in. If you're able to, add them in. And then, see what kind of comes up for you in terms of feelings for what that dream may mean, if there is any meaning that you need to focus on. And over time, you may start to see patterns. Like, when I see this thing in my dream, it means this, or I need to pay attention to that. So I think that there's probably a fair amount of learning that comes with that, but it's an incredibly powerful tool. It's one of a wonderful way for subconscious to connect with us. And again, like, subconscious is where intuition and where psychic ability, where that is all able to start entering. Awesome. And we've got Pat saying Daisy, 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 Shasta Daisy. Daisy. Thank you. Oh, that was a couple of minutes ago. I'm really behind on the comments. Yes, it is the Daisy. The he loves me not. He loves me not. And Leslie, thank you. Leslie also says that she'd cheat too. I'm sending you a great big huge high five. That's awesome. And Elizabeth says we've all done that. Yeah, I think that's probably human nature. So Jerry's saying if you have a cat, ooh, and it will also decide which card is good for you or not. Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, our cats are so in tune and they're so intuitive. For Bobbi, she's got a couple of cats. They're all her witch cats. Oh my God. And sometimes they will lay on the card and bite you if you try to take it. Okay. I don't have cats. I don't actually have any pets, but Jerry, that is pretty interesting. So I wonder if that's the card that you really need the message, or maybe that's the message for the cat and it doesn't want to share. Yeah, and Chantel says you can buy a deck, no problem. Absolutely. I certainly didn't have 60 or 70 people who gave me all of the card decks that I have, so you can definitely buy them. And let me see. So Ange is saying it's been a few years since she last used her cards, but she loves them. That's awesome. Elizabeth, I feel like the deck I got called me. Yeah, that definitely happens. I was actually in a secondhand store looking for a phone card for home phone and was leaving, and I was drawn to a shelf, and they were there with a stone sculpture that is a lady holding, a heart with the saying, "Love everlasting and true." Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, there are so many different ways to choose your card decks. It's wonderful when they like fall out at you and pop out at you like that. Yeah. One of the things that I talk about in my the using your intuition to, or pardon me, using cards to develop your intuition, oracle cards, is to pop into the local metaphysical shops. One of the amazing things about them is they usually have a lot of different card decks, and they usually also have a sample deck. So if you aren't 100% sure which deck you should get, but you're really drawn to picking up a deck, then you can go into the metaphysical shops. And it's also really great to support our local shops too. If for some reason you need to buy online, your shops don't carry the cards that you want, or you're not close to any shops, then buying online is also an option too. One of the things I think is really neat is there are a lot of YouTube videos where people unbox the cards and where they show you the cards. And one of the reasons that I'm talking about this is it's really important when you choose a deck to choose a deck that you resonate with. So what I'd encourage you to do, if you physically are able to hold a potential deck of cards in your hands, is give them a little shuffle and pull a card, just a random card. What do I need to know right now? And so then you take a look at the card that you get. And for me, trust, that totally makes a lot of sense. This is the Romance Angels deck too. So it's all about relationships. And the message that I just pulled here is trust. And I'm like, yeah, that really speaks to me. But also take a look at the picture and the imagery. Take a look at the message. Is this something that draws you, that feels good for you? And pull another couple of cards. What else do I need to know? And to see how much that resonates for you, because that makes a really big difference. We've got like the soulmate card popping up. So yeah, take a look. There's a lot you can do. And you can also let the pendulum pick the card for you too. Yeah, that's a great one. Again, it's really important to, I think, when you use a pendulum, to be in a place where you're open to whatever the message is, and not to have any preconceived ideas. But yeah, a pendulum can definitely guide you and direct you too. And Chantel says Star Child Oracle is one of my favorite, but also the Baroque Bohemian Cat Tarot of Vampires by Ian Daniels, Aura Soma cards. I could go on and on. Love the art in the cards. Yeah. I mean, well, for somebody who is really clairvoyant, it makes sense that you would choose cards that you really enjoy the images with and the imagery that's there, because that's an important part of how you're receiving the messages. And Ruth says Destiny Portal. That's a deck, the card deck that she just got. That's awesome. And Maureen says, thank you. That makes so much sense. I used to have a dream journal and then started waking myself up after every dream. Oh, so I could write it down. had to stop. Yeah, I can see how that would be disruptive to your sleep and to your body's ability to regenerate itself. But yeah, dream journals can be really, really powerful tools, especially if you remember your dreams. And with hypnotherapists, they have some really interesting ideas about how to decipher your dreams as well. A friend of mine years ago, when I was doing a lot of my training, my spiritual training and cards and angels and stuff like that, she was a hypnotherapist, and she led us through this really interesting dream deciphering. I can't remember all of the steps right now, but that could be another way to decipher what messages are coming up for you, what you need to understand. And one of the things that was important with that was to write the dream out as much as you could, at what you remembered. And you went through and you changed words. So, for example, one of the things that I remember was that any person or animal who showed up in your dream became became you. So it was a message that you were telling to yourself or giving to yourself. There are lots of other things that you did as well, but it was a really interesting technique. Yeah, and Jerry's saying you're so right on the dreams. Also, you will get premonitions there too. Yeah, absolutely. Your dreams are such a wonderful portal into your subconscious, into what's going on. So sometimes people are completely overrun by dreams, and it has an impact, a negative impact on their sleep, and therefore on physical and mental and their well-being in general. So one of the things that I say for people, if you are experiencing that, to make sure that you take time out during the day to connect with your subconscious. So there are lots of really great ways to do that. Meditation and any form of meditation. Meditation doesn't just need to be sitting quietly and still and waiting for like inspiration to come in. It doesn't have to be like that. It can be. If you meditate that way and it works for you, amazing. Take some time out to meditate, because what you're doing here again is you're allowing your subconscious the opportunity to connect. But you can also do moving meditations, which can be really specific, focused movement that you're doing, or it could be something like going for a walk or going for a drive, as long as you're continuing to, maintain your focus on the road. Please don't go into a deep meditation while you're driving. Still be conscious and aware of what's happening around you, but it can be a place where you allow your thoughts to go and where you allow ego to step off to the side. My mom, back in a time when she did iron, used to say that ironing was a great meditation for her because it was something that was rhythmic. She didn't need to focus on anything else. She could be really present with the ironing, and she found it was very comforting and very meditative. So there are lots of different ways that we can disconnect during the day. And as I said, if you are having a hard time with dreams or with deceased loved ones coming through and it's disrupting your sleep to the point where you aren't getting a good sleep, make time for that during the day to connect with your subconscious. Let me see. And Ange said, I had a toxic boss and I used to dream of screaming at her and walking out. Wow. If that doesn't say what your subconscious is needing you to do, I don't know what is. And then I left, and an old coworker left a year later, and I had a dream again of the old boss, but this time it was calming and relaxing. And Ange says, I think it was a sign that we made the right choice. Absolutely. Certainly for your health and well-being. But you never know what other things are happening. And possibly the act of two people leaving, potentially more, meant that the boss needed to make changes, which were in her best interest, or you never know. But yeah, it's a great confirmation. Yeah, and Elizabeth saying, absolutely, I wouldn't just buy any deck. I have been suffering anxiety at night, and this is a good way to end my evening with positivity, breathing affirmations. Absolutely. In fact, that was one of the ways that I really got into reading cards. I had dabbled in my teen years and, had done readings with playing cards. If you were with us at the beginning, I mentioned that our playing cards are actually based on the minor arcana Arcana tarot cards. And that was what my grandmother used to read too, is she used to read playing cards. So to kind of honor that, I found this little book that talked about how to read playing cards. And so that was what I would do at school during lunch in high school, was I would read cards for myself and I'd read cards for friends, and I'd always have a lineup of people sitting and waiting for readings because it was fun. It was a great way to connect and to do something that wasn't schoolwork in high school. But then, I graduated. I went to university, to college, and I was out working, and I was in a job where the people were absolutely amazing. But I really didn't enjoy what I was doing. And so anxiety for me was running so high. I actually ended up having to leave that job because my anxiety had completely overrun me. But one of the reasons I was able to stay as long as I did was because I'd spend, an hour at night before going to sleep connecting with my cards. And the cards that I was using at the time were the messages from your angels. So part of what it was doing was it was helping me to connect with my angels even more deeply. So yeah, cards can be a really great tool for you as you are going through a healing process to help bring some calm and some balance and to take you out of the experience that you're in. So I'm so glad for you, Elizabeth, not for the anxiety, but for the tools and the techniques that you've found. When we talk about silver linings in the gray clouds, sometimes the things that we deal with and that we experience throughout the course of our day, the challenges that we go through as people and humans, that really helps to open up coping mechanisms and tools that enrich our lives in other ways. So I'm excited for you for that you've found this really positive way of coping and dealing with the anxiety you experience in the evening. Because goodness knows there are lots of different things that we can do that are possibly more detrimental or that spiral us into more and more anxiety, even though in the moment it feels good. So congratulations. That's exciting. Yeah. Jerry says, on dreams, write the colors and sounds from your dreams. Oh, that's a really cool idea. I hadn't thought of that. I don't know that I dream in sound. Hey guys, let me know who here dreams with sounds. Like, do you get like a full audio sound? I would really be interested in that. For me, I get a lot of feelings. Feelings are definitely come through really strongly. And I actually also work in my dreams too. I do readings in my dreams sometimes. And often I wonder if that's part of the reason that when I wake up in the morning, I'm really tired. But several years ago, I was getting ready to do a spirit fair, and I had a couple of girlfriends staying over at my house, and they were going to come and participate in the spirit fair too. And because I only had like my queen size bed and I had a couple of couches and a couple of air mattresses, one of my girlfriends slept in my bed with me. And she said, Erin, did you know that you were talking in your sleep last night? And I said, well, I know that I do talk in my sleep. But I hate to ask, what was I saying? Well, she said, I realized after a while that you were giving somebody a reading and you welcomed them in and you were talking about their clothing and you were giving them messages. And she said, I was really torn. Like, is this reading for me? Is this something that I should need to know? Or am I intruding on somebody else's reading that you're doing in your dream? So yeah, your dreams can definitely be a time when you're connecting with people. Let me see. So Chantel says, I don't do messages with cards for others. Yeah, I don't use cards for that, but I love them to use on myself or the page. Yeah. Chantel has a really awesome and amazing reading page too. And I am so terrible when it comes to names, but the main part of her name is her last name. And if you're on the feed right now, you might be able to see her comments here. Ashmir Daya. It's ASHMIRDHAYA. And Chantel, if you're able to give me how to pronounce it, I would love to pronounce it properly. So yeah, definitely. I typically only use cards in my readings to give people something to do when they are in person with me while I'm doing the writing and getting the messages for them. And it's also a lot of fun too. Yeah, and Jerry's saying heartbeat meditations are really good too. Yeah, absolutely. Where you're listening to your heart and you're connecting with the rhythms of your body. I really enjoy breath and breathing meditations. A couple of weeks ago, I finished my breath coach certification, and that's been a huge game changer for me just in my own personal life, coming into breath and slowing down and just taking a couple minutes out of the day to connect on that level. Yeah. Yeah. So Ruth is saying that she does, and Bobbi says that yes, she dreams in sound and in color. And Ruth says that she also sees ghosts. So Ruth, when you see ghosts in your dreams, are they deceased loved ones that you know that are connected to you, or are they other random ghosts that have just found you? That's I always find that really interesting and fascinating. I've got a lot of rules. If you've been around on Oracle chats for a while, you'll know this because Bobbi and I tease each other about it, mostly because I have rules and she doesn't really. But one of my rules is that the only people who can come in and connect with me are my loved ones. Or if I'm doing readings for people, then their loved ones can come through. So I don't really see a lot of people outside of my people. So yeah, I would love to hear about that. Yeah, so Jerry says, dreams. Yes, yes, always lucid dreams. Thought everyone did. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't have lucid dreams. So I always think that's really fascinating. I can pause a dream, stop it to get up and go to the bathroom and go back to bed and start the dream again. So it's kind of like a video, being able to stop and start. That's cool. I know my sister is a really good lucid dreamer, and apparently, when she was quite young, she was telling my mom this. When she was having a nightmare, she trained herself and taught herself how to wake herself up to get out of it. And I certainly don't have that level of control over my dreams at this point, but what a cool, amazing thing for a 6-year-old child to be able to develop to do. So that says a lot. We dream and we experience things in such different ways. Yeah, and Ruth says that she sees people's houses and sees ghosts. Yeah. Yeah. Ash. Oh, okay. So Chantel is saying Ashmir Daija. Daya. Oh, Daya. Ashmir Daya. I hope I've got that right. And Chantel, I knew this too, but Chantel says that's her soul name. That's beautiful. Yeah, okay. So Ruth says she doesn't see ghosts in her dreams. Cool. That's cool. Yeah, I don't really, unless they're connected with me. Elizabeth says, I don't remember a lot of my dreams, but when I had recently, like maybe 1 month ago, with someone saying, I'm here for you, then I see a sign with the name Robert, and I don't understand it fully. Oh, that's really interesting. Either that to me sounds like a lot of different things. That could be somebody whose name is Robert, who is in your life already or who's coming into your life. But that could also be the name of a guide, or somebody who's watching out for you from the other side. And for me, names have never really been a big thing. I say that, and one of my guides is George. He's constantly repeating his name in my head. But I would say that with Robert. But man, what a beautiful message to receive during your dreams is that to know that somebody is there for you. That's a really powerful message to receive. And part of what I see when I read that is like just being held. It's kind of like, you know what, I've got you, I'm supporting you, I'm holding you. And Elizabeth, I think, also had mentioned anxiety at night too. So, what a wonderful time to receive that kind of message is either like during or after going through a bout of anxiety, and to have somebody say, hey, like, I'm here for you. It could be interesting to experiment with connecting with Robert, Elizabeth. I mean, obviously do what feels best and right for you, but I kind of wonder if when you're in a place where you're starting to experience some anxiety, if you can call on the energy of Robert and say, hey, I'm having a hard time. Are you still here? Could you hold me a little bit longer? I'd love to be able to get through this with you, because it certainly sounds like the offer is there. Yeah, and Linda's saying I can stop and start dreams as well. So get up, go back, carry right on. It's a gift. Yeah, that definitely is a gift. That is so cool. So for Linda and for Jerry and anybody else who has this amazing gift and ability, is it something that you've always had? Is it something that you developed over time? Did you have to practice it, or was it just always something you can do? Because one of the things that I wonder is, in the same way that I have rules to kind of keep safe, we can also ask for help and support in experiencing new things. So I'm kind of thinking, maybe in addition to help with remembering more of my dreams, if maybe I can get the remote control that goes with the dreams too. I think I'm going to try that. I'll let you guys know next week. I will write it down on a piece of paper so I remember. Does anybody else want to try it with me? I think that'd be a really cool conversation to have. And I'd actually really love Bobbi's input on it too. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And Chantel saying almost that she gets really lucid dreams and she's almost able to control them too. And yeah, Linda, what a really cool gift to have. Elizabeth said, I used to dream, but no longer. It's weird. Happy Mother's Day to everyone. Yeah. Have a blessed day. Wish I could remember them. We've lived in a few, haunted. Sorry. I misread that. I thought you said a few hundred houses. I mean, you could have lived in a couple hundred houses. What do I know? But haunted makes a little more sense. Yeah, saying that they're friendly, but they let you know that they were there, and hear them in your house. Yeah, for sure. I have friends who own a farm, and there are a lot of deceased people, deceased loved ones on the other side who hang around. Sometimes they scare them. Most of the time they just hang out. A couple of them we've kind of had to put in their place and say, hey, like, it's not appropriate to keep doing that, to keep scaring people. Yeah, often we think we're passive when it comes to working with spirit or with angel or whoever you work with, but you have a lot of power and control, and you can certainly say, hey, it's not appropriate to visit me, or it's not appropriate to visit me in this way. So you're just not allowed to do that. And you can call on your angels or guides or anybody else that you work with that are beings of light on the other side. You can ask them for help and support with that too. Yeah. Let me see, keeping in mind as I go forward. Cool. Okay, so Linda's asking, can you recommend a really good dream analysis book for people like myself who see and visit and talk to dead people in my dreams? I wish that I could offer one. And part of what I would say, actually, I mean, it is great to have books and ideas as a foundation to give you a bit of a framework to work from. But part of what I would do is take a look at the images that you see, perhaps on a regular and consistent basis. So, for example, when I work with deceased loved ones, I don't do a lot. But when I do, rainbows are really significant, and part of that is letting their loved one know that they're okay, and they'll show up in rainbows. And so rainbows, I know that that's what that means, is that I'm okay, I'm with you, I'm here, or yes, you're on the right track. Any one of those things. That's what rainbows mean for me. And part of what you can do is you can almost develop like your own dictionary based on your own understanding. I watched John Holland several years ago, and he was talking about some of the images that he gets when he works with deceased loved ones. And so basically, he has kind of this repertoire, and spirit, when they want to connect with him and talk with him, these are some of the go-tos. And so he said for him, he grew up with parents who were alcoholics. And so as soon as he saw the Jack Daniel's whiskey bottle, he knew that alcohol was an issue, either for the person who had crossed over on the other side or for the person he was talking to. I think usually it was for the person who had crossed over on the other side. And it was one of the ways that they communicated with him that alcohol had been a problem, and either that was part of the message or was part of confirmation. For me as somebody, I didn't really grow up around alcohol. My parents were older when they had me. They drank very responsibly. They barely drink now. And so alcohol isn't really a thing for me. So if I were to get the same Jack Daniels, it wouldn't mean the same thing for me. And I think that's one of the things to be aware of when it comes to dream dictionaries, is everybody's interpretation is going to be different based on the experiences that they have had. Possibly there are some things like, what does it mean when you're running in your dream? And maybe that's something that's a little more generic for people. I would say that probably the thing that you're moving towards or you're moving away from, maybe that has more significance. So what I would encourage you to do, yes, take a look for some dream books and to get like a framework, but a lot of this is going to be based on what the messages mean for you. And so it could be a really great exercise to think about what different things mean for you, especially if you're seeing those kind of images or you're getting those kind of messages over and over in your dreams. Ask, okay, well, what does this mean for me? I have a rose popping into my head as I'm talking about that. And and roses for me mean lots of different things. It's part of the nickname that my mom used to call me when I was little. So like there's that aspect of it. That is probably something that doesn't apply to the average person, having that connection and that correlation. So I would encourage you to see what the messages mean for you. And likely it is going to be something that references something that is significant as well. Yeah. Elizabeth, definitely try connecting with this Robert energy, whatever it may be, especially since it said that it was there. Yeah. Let me see. Oh, we've got some spammers on here. Hold on, guys. This often happens when I do the live shows, especially on my page. So my apologies if anybody has been contacted for readings. Please know that, we don't solicit readings, neither Bobbi or I, and we won't come in and ask you to DM us or anything like that. So if somebody on our feed is doing that, know that as soon as we get off, if I don't see it while we're on, I will take care of them. Yeah, so Jerry's saying that she's been a lucid dreamer all her life. Cool. And Linda, I feel like I've had this ability for my whole life, but as I aged, I became more aware of it. So now it happens all the time. Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense to me. So cool. I think that's great. And certainly, the more that we have understanding about ourselves, I think the deeper our realization can come into things as we're moving forward with our dreams. Yeah. So Amazes. I wonder if that's amethyst because amethyst. I wonder if Chantel is suggesting amethyst because that can be a really good crystal to have. One thing that I'll mention about having crystals around is they are really high vibration and high frequency. So there are a couple of things to know. If you have a lot of crystals around you while you're sleeping at night, it can have an impact on your quality of sleep. So less is more. And especially if you are doing a lot of healing or processing, or you're having really convoluted, weird, or nightmarish kind of dreams, make sure you're clearing your crystals on a regular basis because all of that energy can be stored and sucked into it, and you don't want it to continue to perpetuate it. I have a really beautiful client. She is like a crystal goddess, and her room is like covered in crystals. They're all over the place. Like she's got a really deep and amazing connection with them. And she was having a very difficult time sleeping. Like she was constantly feeling like she was buzzed. She was dealing with some anxiety. And the message that came through was that she had too many crystals in her space. So, I mean, if you think about it, for many of us, having like caffeine or any sort of stimulant, sugar, or sometimes even food, just eating before you sleep can cause you to have a poor sleep or an unrested sleep. And that's because there's so much that's going on in your body. And the same can happen with crystals too. So just a couple of crystals, not a lot of crystals in your space. But yeah, amethyst is a really good dream crystal. You're absolutely right. Yeah, wonderful. And happy Mother's Day from Ruth. Great. Jerry says dream analysis books are not good. Oh, in her eyes, you need to interpret what things mean to you, and no one else can do that for you. Yeah, that's kind of where I fall with that one too. But I do think that it can be helpful to get like a foundation and some groundwork as well. Anytime something is coming through for you, I think that there's a really wonderful opportunity to learn more about yourself, to come into deeper awareness of who you are, what things impact you, how they impact you, connecting with your intuition. I was actually, to kind of get off topic slightly, I was having a conversation with my sister the other day. I've been working on creating some oracle card decks. I have ideas for about 10. And part of what stops me up is the imagery. Like, I'm just not an artist. That's not my forte. But my younger sister is an incredible artist. And she said, "Well, Erin, why don't I help you? It'd be really cool to work on a project together." And so we've been going back and forth. And her experience, she's also highly intuitive as well, but she hasn't developed it in the way that I have. And for her, her outlet is tarot. So we're going back and forth talking about different things. We're talking about the booklet and all of these different things. And I said, for me, when I use cards or when I teach people to use cards, it's not about the meaning in the book. It's about what the person gets for themselves. I think it can be, this is maybe an unpopular opinion, but I think it can be a disservice to yourself, to your own development, to focus and concentrate on the booklet and the message that the author created. Because at the end of the day, the author's intention, I would hope, is to help you learn and grow, to access and to connect with your intuition on a deeper level and on a more significant level. And I think that part of the opportunity that's present in connecting with your dreams is exactly the same thing, that it's another tool. It's like an oracle card deck. It's like it's pendulum or dowsing rods or any other tools that we use to deepen our understanding of our intuition, to connect more with ourselves. Like, here's a beautiful tool. And instead of giving the power over to somebody else's thoughts and ideas and perceptions, isn't it a cool place to be able to come into that understanding for yourself? Because same with the rose thing, the rose has some really significant meanings for me that they probably won't have for you, but likely there are really significant meanings that a rose would have for you that it doesn't have for me. And so, yeah, there's the opportunity to really explore that. And I think that's really amazing. Yeah. Heather says, "Happy Mother's Day. Missing my mom who passed." Heather, I'm sending you big hugs and so much love and support. Um, you know, I can only imagine the difficulty that today in particular would bring. So know that I'm sending and surrounding you with big hugs, love, and healing. And actually, I wasn't exactly sure what we were going to talk about today. So Jerry, thank you for kicking us off with the Oracle card chat. But I was really drawn to pull up the rose quartz heart. So I'm sending some rose quartz heart energy, Heather, to you and to anybody else who's having a challenging day today. There's so many reasons that we can have challenging days on days like today. It can bring up things that haven't been healed or relationships or yeah, there's lots. So if you're having a challenging day today, I send big hugs, love, support, and healing to you too. Kathy, hello. It's always so good to see you. I'm so glad you're on today. And Chris, hi. Thanks for joining us. Oh, okay, Chantel, thank you. So Chantel said that it was right. Let me just see. Amazes is what Chantel has said, and she says it's a combination of amethyst and azulite. Now, is azulite the same as azurite? It's been so long since I've gotten into the new crystals that I'm not too familiar with some of the new ones that they've found. Yeah, and Chantel says she has crystals all over, that she sleeps better with crystals and often sleep with the maki balls in your hands. Absolutely. The maki balls, they're known as so many different things. Boji balls or boji stones, shaman stones, and one is male and one is feminine, and you hold one in each hand and it helps to balance. One of the things I think that perhaps is coming up for people with having a lot of crystals is they usually do a lot of really high vibration, so quartzes and auras and different crystals like that. But when you're sleeping, you really want to have things that are grounding. So there can be a balance. Everybody's obviously really different, but having a lot of grounding crystals could potentially be really helpful too. Yeah. So as you light. Amazing. Awesome. Well, my friends, I think we've come to the end of our hour together. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you who have taken time out of your day to connect with me, especially since it was just me and not Bobbi and I. We should be back next week on Sunday, which I think is May the 15th, 2022. Um, Oracle chats at 3:30 Pacific, which is 6:30 Eastern. These videos are always tagged at the top of my pages, my Heavenly Messenger Facebook page, the Universal Connections Facebook page, and I need to talk to Bobbi about pinning it up at the top of her page too, so that it's really easy to find. But if for some reason you're having a difficult time finding our live stream, you can always head over to our website. It's universalconnections.ca, and on the homepage, I always have the link to the YouTube video. You can watch it live there, but I think you do need to click over into YouTube in order to be able to comment with us in the comments. So lots of options. As I said, it's such a pleasure connecting with you guys today. I'm so grateful that you've taken time out of your day. I'm sending big hugs, lots of love and support to everybody, lots of love and healing to everybody on this beautiful Mother's Day, and hope that you have a fabulous evening. Take care.